What's up? How many of you guys out there remember that commercial? That's going to put an age on you. But anyways, you guys can see here, here's my 93 GMC 1500 that for those of you that are new, I am building to do drag and drive events with. If you missed it, go back and check it out. But our last video, we yanked that engine out, yanked the transmission out, totally stripped the firewall, got everything prepped, cleaned, and painted. Made a patch panel right there to cover up all the holes where the heater and AC lines came through. That panel was actually made out of a dryer that I have sitting out in front of the shop. I just flipped up on its side here. There you go. You can see that guy over there right on the other side of the bikes. Made the patch panel out of that. Same gauge, so worked out real well. Got everything sealed and silicone in. I got all the sheet metal hardware installed. I am going to change out to the stainless because I actually like the look of that stainless better on the red than just having those screws painted. Kind of helps break up the color. I've also spent the last day and a half wire wheeling, scraping, cleaning, getting all the oil, grease, and grime off the front of this frame, and got it painted this nice semi-gloss black. Also did an aerosol overhaul on our steering box. Now that thing never leaked or gave me any issues, so we should be good to go. And installed a new idler carrier. Now the rest of the frame on this truck, I'm going to do an undercoating. I would do the whole frame undercoating because I do like that stuff, but if you've ever used it on your wheel wells or frames, when it dries, it leaves a slight brown tint to it, and I didn't think that would look good against the red. So, but I got everything painted up here on the frame. I think it looks really good. I'm happy with it. Like I said, it's cheap. It's a drag and drive truck. If I scratch it, bang it up, chip it, I can just touch it up with some more spray paint. So, so now what I need to do is I want to put this engine back in the frame rails, get it bolted in for hopefully the final time. But before I do that, while I have room, I need to change out our change out our tie rod ends. We'll get the new ones installed. I got a bunch of them right there. Now I got this kit off eBay, pretty cheap, and it comes with a bunch of. I've used it on a lot of other of my vehicles, and it's always worked out really well. They're cheap. I think it was just over $100 for the full kit, minus one of the lower ball joints. It for whatever reason the kit didn't have it this time, which is fine, and I'm sure they'd have taken care of it if I'd have gotten a hold of them. But I don't know if you guys are like me, but I bought parts for this truck many months ago, anticipating this whole build, and I didn't open the box and check when I got it. So I went ahead and ordered new, just ordered another set of lower ball joints. So I am waiting for those, waiting on some springs, waiting on shocks, also waiting on new brake calipers and brake lines. So we'll have all that stuff changed out. And I want to have the engine in this truck before I do any of the ball joints or springs, because I just want to have the weight. You guys know how light the front of these trucks are. So if I get that stuff back in, that'd be awesome. It'll help me out. So that's what we're doing. I'll go ahead and start getting our steering components, get the old ones off. That way we can get the new ones on. We'll get... let's just start there. So I'm gonna get you guys set up in the stand, and we'll start pulling off these tie rods. All right, so got you down here. These are actually the factory tie rods. I don't think they've been changed out. I think they're just the original 1993 hardware, which is kind of cool. So I'm not too concerned with trying to save any boots or anything like that. But if you guys are, if you're going to change it out because you're going to lower the truck, in these trucks, this is a 2-inch drop spindle. So, it worked fine for me with the big block. These are the factory V6 springs. I put the big block in it, and I did 2-inch drop spindles to match the axle flip I did in the back. But anyways, if you're going to lower your truck or you're taking the tie rods to change them or anything like that, I see a lot of guys grab pickle forks, which is fine if you're not going to save the tie rod ends, because those things will destroy your boot. But if you are going to save it and you're going to reuse it, this one, particular one, is 18 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and loosen it up. Okay, I like to take them all the way off and then just run it on by hand. That way you know it'll come off. You know it's easy. It'll come off easy. And I do that because if you're going to save it, you're protecting the starting threads. And if you've ever messed with a hammer and smacked the starting thread, you're sitting there with either a thread file or a hacksaw blade trying to fix your threads. So take the nut all the way off. Start on by hand. Pick a flat spot right here on the side here and give it a couple of good whacks. It should. Nope. There it goes. The shock will release it. So I just had to put my purse down. And that way you're not destroying your boot. You can put your tie rod right back on. You don't have the pickle fork marks or grooves in there. And then when you go to grease it or service it, it's not squirting out those splits. But this one's destroyed. I can use a pickle fork to take the other one off, which is what I'm going to do. And then I'll grab the new parts here. We'll line them up along our old tie rods. Make sure we get the distance correct. Go ahead and reinstall this with our new pitman arm and eyler. So let me get the other side off. I'll be right back. All right, we got everything off. I got all the parts cleaned up. I've gone ahead and already laid out our inner and outer tie rods. Now I'll put a link to these guys in the description. It's pretty self-explanatory. The tie rod with the greaser on the outside area here, that is your inside. The one that goes in the bottom here, that is your outside. Plus, if you weren't paying attention, one would fit really sloppy because the outside one's a smaller taper. The inside one's a larger taper, so one side would fit, one side wouldn't. But we got these in. I've got them ran all the way in. Both sides are done. Now I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads inside here. And I know in a perfect world, once these are adjusted, you should never have to touch them again. But for the off chance you let your brothers, uncles, sisters, boyfriends, next door neighbors, son-in-law, whoever, drive it, there's an accident. It's going to happen. Either they tag a curb, tag a pothole because your guys' streets aren't kept up very well, or heck, you run into something yourself. You're going to have to go to the alignment shop. And the old ones, if they've never been touched like these guys here, they get pretty seized up, pretty rusted. See, it is a split. There it is right there. So there's nothing keeping the weather or the outside elements out from rusting those threads together. So I like to put a little never seize on there. You don't have to, but it does make it easier to adjust in the event it ever has to be. So now, here's where we're at. Now I've got everything cleaned. Got the steering box bolted up here. We'll get you down in here. That's all bolted up, but you can see I don't have a pitman on here. And if you're like me, just take things off, throw them on the ground, put it back together. Now, the new pitman arm, I'll get you up in here, see if it'll show it. But you can see the splines in there, and every about 90 degrees or so, you'll see it's a much larger spline. That's because this guy can go on one of 4 ways. So, and they're 90 degrees off from each other. And what I do is take it off because I cleaned it, I turned it, took the old one of these things off. Basically, just put the box on there, put this up in a direction straight back where it would be. Get you down here. Let's get you in here. So, basically, I put this in the orientation would be if everything's set correct, which is straight back. Now you can take it, go one direction till it stops. You can see stops roughly It's roughly 45-degree mark. Take it back to 0 or straight where it would be factory, and then go back the other direction. And it is roughly a 45-degree angle there. Now, if you put it on or you're cleaning it up and got this thing turned, you could have it over here, and then you turn it straight, you'll be 90 degrees off. So that's just one way to check. But now that I got that guy set where I want it, let's double check. Now that I'm talking. Yep, 45. Okay. So I'll just make sure this is back straight. Good to go. And if it's straight like it's supposed to be, there's a little flat spot up here. On mine, it's flat on the top, so that'll definitely help. Now I've already got the idler bolted up into place. So now we're going to grab my center link here. Here's another thing you guys can look out for. These go on, they can go on 2 ways, but one way is going to be extremely painful. Taper, these inside tapers here always go up, because that's going to run into, like, this side will be on our pitman. This side over here will be on our idler. Now you can get this flipped the other way. Tapers are still up, but now this guy's kicked in the wrong direction, and that is a very unnatural bend for your tie rod. So it always goes back towards the vehicle. Taper on the inside, because that's the inside tie rod, with your greaser that goes this way, because you are really, really close to the frame. So, all right, now we'll go ahead and get this in. Get you down here so you can see. Start on the idler side. Make sure I got it. Oh yeah, see, I'm talking. Flip it around. It wouldn't fit that way because the taper was the wrong direction. Right orientation, the things would face back, but taper was on the wrong side. So we'll get that started. On the idler side, go ahead and swing it up over our little stop there. Just run that guy in, leave it a little loose. Then we'll grab our new pitman, and we can start it there. Yeah, just kind of walk them on at the same time. Okay, got that guy walked on. Where is our other? Oh, there it is. We'll get that guy started there. Now I got our nut and washer. Now the tool I bought for this guy right here is a $15 tool from Harbor Freight. Let's see here if I can show you. It's in the automotive section. Matter of fact, they even sell something a lot similar to this at the auto parts store as well. And I think they even rent them out, so you don't necessarily have to buy it. Another thing too, though, when you use them, put a little bit of anti-seize or never seize on these threads. If you don't, they only work about 2 or 3 times before the threads are golded. Especially if you use an impact on them. But I will warn you that stuff gets everywhere, so use it sparingly. All right. So we have these guys on here. We're set up for our center link. Everything looks good there. Now I'm going to go ahead and get you on the outside so we can install the passenger side tie rod. All right, now that we got the pitman arm and idler arm installed, we got the center link up installed. These things we got our castle nuts on just handy for right now. This is so we can get everything placed and mocked up, and if we have to, we can pull it out. But now that we've got that installed, I've already done the driver's side. It's just sitting in place. And I put it back to straight to where it was when we paused. So go ahead and kick this guy all the way out so he's out of your way. And the easiest way I found to do it is, since we have the center link in there, is just turn and pull it like you would be if you were turning this direction. Yep. That gives you, what it does is when it turns out, it actually takes that center link and pulls it away from your cross member there and gives you room. So it will allow that guy to slide up into place. The other thing I like too is your guys' little adjusters here. I like to put them where all the clamps are facing the same direction. You can put it any way you want, but for whatever reason, it drives me nuts unless they're facing the same direction. And I get it, after they're adjusted, they're going to be up, or I can bring this and rotate it down, and then you have the nuts there, or the bolts and the nuts on the same side. So that way you can just kind of, a quick glance, you can get underneath there, you can look. Anyways, now that we got that guy installed there, just go ahead and put our castle nut on the inside tie rod handy. Go ahead and rotate that guy in. Hit our ball joints where it's the same angle as it would be there. And then go ahead and bring our spindle in. And there you go. Now I'm going to leave these outside ones handy because I am going to take these back off once we get the new shocks, springs, upper and lower ball joints. Like I said, I want to wait for the engine to go back in, and then I can put some weight on it. Plus, I still need to get these guys out, get them cleaned up, get them painted. Then I can go ahead and undercoat the rest of the bottom of this thing here. So that's quick and easy for that. Now, what you do is you take your old one, and you go from center to your outside to center of your inside. This one is roughly, I think I measured it once already. I think it's like 16 inches. So center to center. It doesn't have to be exact. Yep, center to center is 16. So I'll come off this guy here. It's about center, and center. So it is close to 16. There's still a little bit of movement in it, but you can see you can turn it, adjust it out. Another thing too, some of these aftermarket inner and outer tie rods, like these ones, I did have to adjust a little. And what I mean by adjust is the threads on them, the shank, are very, very long. So you may or may not have to trim it. The only thing I would do, and that's normal for most aftermarket parts, but you can see the amount of engagement I have all the way in. It runs to the stop of the threads on the inside of the adjuster. And then you have your clamp, which has to sit once it's all the way on. There's these little tips here, or little nipples on the adjuster where that's supposed to ride against. These cannot be on this side. And I at least like to make sure you have threads of your tie rod going past this clamp. If you do not, then you're going to need another tie rod. But if you have to take off, I took off like 1/8 of an inch off each side to give me just that little more of adjustment. And I have still about 1/2 inch of thread showing on the other side of the clamp. That's good. But he said if you have to take off more than that on aftermarket ones, factory, I don't think I've ever had to, just the aftermarket ones. And I'm cheap, so I keep buying aftermarket ones. But that's something to look to be aware of if you go aftermarket. Like I said, I'll put a link to this in the description. You guys can do with it as you will. But now these are handy. Like I said, these guys will be coming back off because I have to take all this apart. But you get them in there, you find center to center, adjust it to match your old ones. That is good enough to get you to the alignment shop. As a matter of fact, I've procrastinated so much, I guess, for a couple months before ever making it to an alignment shop, and my tires turn out just fine. Not all of them, though. I have torn up a couple of one set, 2, maybe 3, at least 2, because the toe is off. Like I said, this is just really just to get you in the ballpark, get to the alignment shop. So, but center to center, right? Greaser on the bottom or in the cap. That's your outside. Greaser in the body. That's your inside. Tapers, face. These 2 tapers here are different sizes, so it'd be really hard to get that mixed up. Plus the part numbers for these guys. So each tie rod has a different part number. I believe the 37 is the inside, 36 is the outside, and it's the same for both sides. But now that I got all my suspension set in place, I'm going to go ahead and get this stuff out of my way. That way we can move to getting our vacuum booster and our master cylinder reinstalled in the truck. I want to do that before putting in the engine, so let's get to that. All right, got all our steering components mocked up and set in place. Everything that needs to be tight right now is tight. Everything except for my outer tie rods. Like I said, I got to get those off, get the spindles off. And here, so let me see if I can get you down in there. These are the little nipples I was talking about that this clamp has to go on this side. And I always like to orientate these guys to where you can see the nuts. That way, I mean, sometimes the nut will fall off and the bolt will still hang out because it's in a little bit of a bind. But if a nut falls off, you can see that. So I like to do that. And I like to play around every once in a while. I like to ask this question. What way do you guys do your cotter pins? Do you do it like over the top and down? Do you do it around? Do you do both sides one way, both of them up? Let me know. I'm always curious, right? Sometimes it'll start one heck of an argument, but I just like to see how you guys do what you do, how you do it, interact, have fun with this whole thing. So, good morning, dudes and dudettes. I had to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's been kind of stuck in my head. I'm trying to be funny. Anyways, good morning. Hope you guys are having a good one. Yesterday, I spent most of the day cleaning. Got all of our suspension, our steering components in, inner and outer tie rods, idler carrier, got our new pitman, steering box installed, got all that set up. Kind of went over how I set up our inner and outer tie rods, good enough to get you to the local alignment shop. Also installed our booster master, and I did these lines yesterday. Now, at one point, I had a neat little video or tutorial kind of, and I have it. It just doesn't have any sound because I was on such a roll yesterday. I wasn't paying attention, and I let the battery in my mic die. So I probably did a couple hours worth of video in and out of talking to nobody but myself. So I'm gonna kind of go over with you real quick. I'm gonna put in some of the do a little time lapse of a couple of the things that I did do. And basically what it was just how I bent up and installed these lines here. Now these service loops I did, of course, using a piece of 2-inch pipe. You don't want to go any smaller than 1 3/4. As you see, this one's kind of still of a snug fit. I like to use 2-inch. It's a little easier on the tubing. This is the factory brake line, and you can see it's just a little bit smaller than this. Any smaller than that, it wants to kink. It's hard to wrap around, and it does kink the brake lines. Another thing is what the tool I use to bend these, and it's not really a tool per se, even though I do have one. I picked this up at Lowe's. I bought it so I could, matter of fact, you guys can see that, there's the name. I bought this to kind of do the line for my water ice maker on the fridge, but quickly realized that I use my thumb for so much that that's all I've ever really used, that it's just easier for me to do it. Now, past a quarter, like 5/16 is a little bit tougher on my thumb, but from that down, I just use my thumb. That's because I know some people, you say like your thumbs only go this far. Mine goes all the way back, and I can get a pretty tight bend on that. Matter of fact, I'm going to set you up in the stand and just kind of show you real quick. But the one thing I really did want to go over is the flaring tool that I use, and that is this guy right here. This is a cheap flaring tool I've had for many years. You can kind of see it's got a little bit of corrosion on it. It's got an assortment of these little pucks here from 2 different tools. And I use one of these guys here to kind of ream out those holes to make them round. It's just easier. I know tubing cutters have that little guy that comes off the end, but it's just easier for me to use that. It's more consistent. But 90% of the time I have a problem with the factory flares, like the ones that come on the lines. Like here's the end, I cut off the one that's there. And it's kind of hard to focus, but it's a really tight, it's a really big, it's squished. There's no squish really left in this flare. And the reason I cut this off, because I wanted to use the factory fitting so they all match. So they're all kind of like the way they were when it came off the truck, even though we're not using the ABS pumps anymore. All these fittings are still the same size. That's why I would cut the flares off, but get you here in the stand. And I kind of want to just go over real quick because I feel it's important and it'll save you guys a bunch of time, a headache, right? I know it saved me once I figured it out. So I'm going to use this piece right here. First, before we do that, I'm going to show you guys, where is it? So what I mean by, like, here's my thumb. I just put it in there. You can grab it, hold it, and see, so there's a 90. See how tight that bend is? I'll do it one more time, just so you can see. And it's just the way my thumb is. It's always, I don't have as much feeling in my thumb either, so that probably helps. Not necessarily a good thing, but it does help me bend gives me really nice tight bends. And you can kind of manipulate them too. Like, so if I brought it out this way, I can move my thumb and then bring the bend. So like there it is there. Bring it out, move your thumb up. There, use your other thumb. And you can use it and I can move it, the bend, about where I want it by using my thumbs and stuff. That's the neat thing. Okay, so anyways, show you guys here. I'm gonna do this quick because once I get over this, we're popping that engine back in this truck. Hopefully for the final time. So get you down here. And like I said, this is just for you, show you what I do, and it helps. 90% of the time, I have good success with this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this off. That way we can start over. You can see the whole process. And I probably should have started right here. It'd been easier, but such is life. So, how many of you guys out there like Bill and Ted? I loved that show when I was a kid, or that movie, I should say. Always cracks me up. Even that's my notification on my phone. Excellent. If you guys might hear it in the background, but anyways, here we go. Cut. You can see there, it's kind of inside the line. I just use this guy. I use my hand. You can use your drill if you want, but if it's brand new and it's sharp, then it takes off material really fast. And I just roll it just like that. Now remember, if you're going to do this to your lines, blow it out with brake cleaner, and then you hit it air line from the other side, blows all that stuff out. You don't want to blow it back in, but so you can see there, that's just by my hand. It's nice, it's open. Now, you want to grab the puck that is good for 1/4 inch. I'm going to show you here, and it's marked on it, so that one says 1/4. I don't know if you can read that, but we're going to need that to set it up in our clamp or in our little tool here. Like I said, this is a cheap, bring it down a little bit more so I quit. But this is a cheap tool that I bought at the auto parts store. So let's see here, maybe. Yeah. Let's go ahead and just put a fitting on there, just for giggles, right? Always want to make sure you got room for your fitting. So 1/4 inch line. In this case, I don't. So we're not using fitting. But now there is a way this goes. Numbers always face you because the teeth, well, for one, it's got the little taper here. That's where your flare seat goes. But anyways, numbers face you. Put your line inside the tool. Now the depth you want, so this is our 1/4 inch puck, and you can see it's kind of stepped. What you want to do is just line that up. So you lay it flat on the tool. Oops, get you up in there. Get my hand out of the way. So you can see there how it's flat. That's as far up as you want that sticking out of this tool. And that's what that step is for. So make sure that's flat. Once you got that set, go ahead and tighten up the clamp here, or tighten up our nuts. Get a nice good bite inside the tool. Let's see here. Starting to get cold. Hopefully it warms up pretty soon, but it was supposed to snow last night. It didn't. Maybe a slight flurry, but there you go. You don't have to get too crazy with it. It's got the little teeth in there, if you can see. The camera shows it. It actually bites down on this tubing really good. And if you go real tight, it'll squish this, and it'll leave the little marks where the teeth are at, which is fine. You can just use a file and clean them up. But when it starts getting to the point where you have to really bear down on it, you're pretty good. So there's that. Now you get this guy set up in the place. Use the other end here. Now this is important for this side. So put it up in there and just start off by hand. Don't use power tools. Some people like to use power tools for some reason, but don't do it. It's just going to mess you up. Now what you do is you just put it on by hand and turn it. Make sure you got all the side-to-side play out, and this guy sits nice and straight up and down with your flare. Right? No wiggle, nothing. Once you got that, take your wrench and just turn it in. Tighten it up. And pay attention to where your little puck is at. So I'm going to go down so far. You do not want to force it past, well, basically force it past what it wants to do. So like this one did not go completely 100% flush, and that's fine, but it's tight, right? It's snug. I can put it in a vise and make it tighter, but I do not want to. At that point, stop. When you loosen it up, you start going past that point, it'll flare funny. It'll squish one side more than the other. So you just want to go to where it stops on its own or gets really snug, and then be done. Take that out and I'll show you what that looks like. So you can see there, it's kind of tapered itself in the seat where it wants to go. That means it's the back side of this flare is sitting flush in our seat, and that's where it wants to be. At this point, you really don't want to squish it anymore with your puck. So we'll go ahead and take this guy out, or I mean put him on. Same thing, just put it on, start it by hand. Take all the wiggle out of it. Make sure it sits straight up and down on your flare. Just like that. There's no wiggle, it doesn't rattle. Go ahead and snug it up. And same thing, you just go until it starts to get snug. Like right there, I got 2 turns out of it, got snug. Done. Now the reason for that, that's the most important for me. And the reasoning for that is, if you're doing flares like this, it's not often you have brand new parts. Sometimes you're trying to do a flare on an old part or an existing part, like coupler in another frame, or another brake line, an older master, something like that. And it's got some years on it. It's kind of worn. It's not 100% perfect. And if you go smashing the flares all the way down, you're going to take some wiggle room out of it. So now I'll give you a comparison. Top one is the factory one, and then there's the one we just did. Now the difference between these two, and you won't see it on camera, maybe you can, but if you can look right up inside there, the one we just did has a little bit of squish left to it. And that's so you can get this on your part, your flare, or whatever it is it's going into. You get your nut on there, you tighten it up, And when you tighten it up, you're going to use the male part of the flare to finish this. That way, if there's any kind of deformity or it's a little worn or something, it'll seat itself to this flare. And that has helped me in the past prevent leaks. It's always worked out better. I've always had more problems with these ones that are already flared versus the ones I do myself, and that's because I leave just a little bit of squish in them. So again, there's that guy versus the store-bought flare. So, and they look pretty identical. And this kit is cheap. I've used it on a lot. I've never had an issue with it. So hopefully that helps. It's a little lengthy, and I'm trying to add some fun to it as well. But, you know, this whole part is for me is to do this, have fun with you guys, interact, that sort of thing. So now that I've got the brake lines done, like I said, I'll put in like a little time lapse. You can see me do the loop around the stainless and all that stuff. But now that we've got that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and get you set up here real quick. We'll do a time lapse of getting this engine in, set it on the mounts, hopefully for the final time. And then get all that stuff out of the way. We can kind of go over what it is we got left. So let's get this engine in. Say hi, Delilah. Hi. All right, engine is back in. Motor mount bolts. The bolts are just slid in there. I might have to. There's a little bit of room on the mounts where I got about a half inch of play, so I'm gonna wait to get the transmission in, make sure everything's sitting exactly where it's supposed to be before I snug those up. Core support is in. Hopefully for the final time. I also mounted our little catch can here. I already made this hose, so this hose kind of told me where the can was supposed to go. I installed it using nutserts and some stainless hardware, and I did that so we could kind of break up the red a little bit because you got black over there. I figured I'd put a little bit of black over here. Went ahead and sat the intake manifold on as well. And if you look down in here, I drilled a hole through the firewall to feed a grommet and started laying out some of our electrical or our harness. Now it's just kind of laying in place where it's supposed to be. I still have to take the intake off. I got to run the fuel line from our fuel cell in the back all the way up front. I want to make sure everything is where it's supposed to go before I snap that in for the final time. I got a lot of work to do inside the truck to reroute that harness. I got to cut up the old harness, get rid of all the crap I don't need. I'm still waiting on suspension parts so we can get the front end done. But for right now, I think this is a good stopping point for right now. It is cold outside. It's starting to get late. But we've made a lot of progress. We got frames all painted, steering components all installed, got the master brake booster cleaned up, painted, reinstalled. The inside of this truck's tore apart. Bunch of other stuff, really. So Definitely chipping away out of it. I'm excited about here. Let's show you guys again. I'm real excited about the way this thing looks. It's really going to call or grab somebody's attention. And like I said before, this is probably my favorite part. I've got some coating, some stuff coming so we can redo the manifolds because they do look ugly in there without being done. But like I said, I'm going to end this one right here. Got to clean up some stuff, put that away. Got a bunch of stuff down here. I need to make room so I can bring my car back in and close this place up for the night. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Appreciate all your support. Definitely motivates me to continue with all this stuff here. Hope it motivates you to get out there and work on your own stuff as well. A lot of this stuff isn't complicated. Like this, all the paint on this truck is between the firewall, the frame, and all that's probably about 40, 50 bucks. It's a lot of elbow grease, a lot of time cleaning. It took hours of scraping and cleaning, and like I said, if it gets chipped or scratched, no big deal. Just go out there, lightly sand it, touch it up with this same color spray paint, and as long as you don't get too heavy on it, it blends right in with itself. So, again, you guys, thanks for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Get out there and work on your projects. Say goodbye, Delilah.
Bye, guys.
Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one.